Hey nerds, welcome to Crisis on Earth X, Theories and Conspiracies. I'm Brian from Good Nerd Bad Nerd. So we finally had the true four-part crossover for the Arrowverse, and that is this Crisis on Earth X. And this was such a good series. The entire storyline, the setup, everything, the villains was really, really, really good. I can't state that enough. Very entertaining. You had emotional punch. You had loss. You had tragedy. It just all around was really good. Spoilers, by the way, because there are some important things that I will be mentioning. But first, just kind of the general Easter egg stuff. So the series starts, and I'm going to try to go chronologically, but I am going to be jumping around probably. So first, we get a reference to Lobo. When Supergirl's fighting the Dominator, which the Dominators are probably going to come back into play again on her show because they're a big villain for the Legion of Superheroes, and that might be why the Legion of Superheroes has come back in time, is because the Dominators came back in time, or there's something there. But when she's fighting the Dominator, John and everyone at the DEO, they're just kind of, what kind of alien is it? And this is something they do whenever they don't know who she's fighting. It's just kind of a guessing game of what alien it is. And it's a way for them to just drop these little references. And one of the alien references they drop is, God, I'm blanking on that. It's like the Zarnians or something. But it's Lobo's people. Now, Lobo is the last remaining person of his race. So it makes sense that this is just a straight up reference to Lobo. So that's what's going on there. Next, we have Barry fighting King Shark. Yep, that's just about it. King Shark. They needed Barry fighting someone, so whenever you need Barry fighting someone, you just pick one of his giant, freakish villains that doesn't talk, really. And King Shark is as good as anyone else. So there's that. Arrow, you just had Green Arrow, fighting ninjas, because ninjas. Yeah, that's basically it. So moving along, we get to the wedding, and the wedding interactions were fantastic. You have Heatwave, who's sitting next to the police chief, behind Joe's fiance. I don't know if they're engaged at this point, but behind, yeah, Heatwave's interaction there was great. And that's one of these things that it just is entertaining when you've got these reform villains or doppelgangers of characters. Like anytime someone recognizes Harry, it's always great. But the girl that comes up to Barry, this was kind of a very interesting character, very misleading. The two prevailing theories on who she is are that she's either Dawn Allen or Jenny Ognitz, I think that's how you pronounce her name, and respectively this is Barry's daughter and granddaughter. Both of them, in one way or another, are speedsters. I think that's very possible. My initial thought was, oh, maybe it's a female impulse, but that was before I learned of these other members of Barry's family line that were also speedsters. So most likely one of those two. It makes sense. I mean, that's kind of a common trope in time traveling, someone wanting to go back to see moments in their family's life. And so it makes sense that she might come back in time and do that. But you never know. So that's the most likely option on who that character could be. Now, continuing with the wedding, the priest gets instantly vaporized as they are in the middle of the ceremony, and the priest was played by William Catt. If you don't know who he is, there was a TV show in, I want to say, late 70s, early 80s called Greatest American Hero, and he was the greatest American hero. And so you have the wedding of one of DC's greatest heroes being performed by the greatest American hero. So that was just a little Easter egg for fans of superhero pop culture. Moving along, as the battle on Earth gets started and we learn that the doppelgangers from Earth X have stolen this ridiculously large, giant red crystal. That fight, after they've stolen it, takes place at Dayton Optical Systems. Now, it's possible that's just a name, but it's also very likely that this is a reference to the Doom Patrol and the character Mento, who was named Steve Dayton. Again, these shows like to do this. A business will be named for a character or an artist or a writer. So it's hard to say who. This is the most likely explanation, or it could just be a name. I know we tend to read a lot into things, but that's very possible. Now, Overgirl, her disease. It seemed a little odd, if you're not familiar with the comics, that to say she's dying from overexposure to radiation. But this actually does have context from the comics. Not necessarily the main continuity, but if you go to the limited series All-Star Superman, and DC made a animated film about this. It's actually really, really good. It's a really good story, but one of the things is Superman's dying because in order to fix, in an instance when he was up in space and he absorbed too much solar radiation and his cells were breaking down. They were literally exploding in his body. And because of that, he was trying to get all this stuff done, but he eventually uses his decaying body to actually go repair the sun. And so there is a continuity for this from the comics, and that explosion was essentially what they kind of thought would happen because all of Superman's cells were exploding and he was becoming unstable. So that's what's going on. I thought that was a really clever thing. Now, the fact that a heart replacement would fix this, that I think is a little bit of a stretch, but they needed something, and so I'll give them that. But now the last little Easter egg that I thought was great, when Overgirl is actually starting to explode, Harry tells her to get rid of her by saying, you need to go up, up, and away. And everyone who's familiar with Superman knows that is the opening from the original cartoon. And I think there was a comic series actually called Up, Up, and Away. It's as associated with him as the costume. So those were just kind of the basic Easter eggs, but all in all, this was such a good series. We finally have Barry and Iris, and then Oliver and Felicity all getting married. Nice, no fuss, no muss. Little thing done by Digger, or whatever his name is. My whole problem with that scene, Diggle. When Barry gets him, rushes him back, he can't handle being moved at super speed. He throws up. They don't even step away from the vomit. They do the wedding right there. And the most unbelievable thing in the entire episode was that. So the traveling to different dimensions, all that stuff, I'm fine with it, but doing the wedding ceremony literally on the top of the pile of vomit, that I can't, I don't believe that for a minute. But one of the questions I did have for this, and I'm curious what you guys think, they constantly say there's only 52 Earths. There's only 52 parallel Earths, parallel dimensions, things like that, which is, they get that from the New 52 and when DC decided to shrink down their multiverse. So there's only 52 until they want more. And then there's technically 53, but if there can be 53, why aren't there more? And is it that each Earth only has 52 others? So there could be 52 for Earth 1, but then Earth 2 doesn't necessarily have 52 that are exactly the same. And who gets to decide the numbering? So why isn't every Earth Earth 1? You get my point. But what do you guys think on that? The current series they're doing right now, the big